How important is the luck of drawing the good beat? I mean, is this luck or skill? Which one is it? You've got bronze 2 times in a row now, which seems very consistent, which would indicate it's not luck. But man, if you get a crappy beat, you're in a world of hurt. So, like, what's the
There's
balance?
there's definitely a good bit of luck. It's you got to be good and lucky. Especially for an individual medal. If you're trying to get on the podium individually, you have to have at least a middle of the line beat every session. If you get a really bad beat that there's just nothing that can be done with, it doesn't matter how good of an angler you are. You're not going to get on the podium. Aside from some very hectic competitions like the Czech Republic, where basically everyone got one bad beat, and it made for a pretty high points world. But usually you got to be fairly lucky. So as an individual, you fish 5 sessions, right? So there's a good chance in one of those 5 sessions that you're going to get a beat that's not great. There's a good chance that someone out of the 160 people is going to get 5 beats that are pretty good. So from the individual perspective, there's definitely luck that plays a big role. From a team perspective, as a team, you fish 25 beats. Your points are all added up. So you have 5 anglers, they fish 5 beats, and through that larger sample size, it usually tends to even out a little. Obviously, there's still some luck involved, but for the most part, every team is going to have a couple bad beats between their anglers. They're going to have a couple really good beats between their anglers, and then they're going to have average middle of the road beats for the rest of the time.
Loop to Loop is supported by Patagonia, high performance outerwear made responsibly for our planet. G. Loomis, American made fly rods manufactured in Woodland, Washington. Cigars International, free shipping on the world's finest cigars. Able Reels, proudly designed, machined, anodized, and assembled in the USA, crafted for chaos. Renzetti, the vice of legends. Airflow, next-gen PVC-free fly lines with new tech, new formulas, and the same obsession. Trout Routes, a fly fishing navigation app that helps you stop guessing and start catching. Hi, my name is Ross Purnell, editor and publisher of Fly Fisherman magazine. Welcome to Loop, where we make deeper connections with the people behind the magazine. Our guest today is Mike Komara. He's in our studio today. He owns the company Innovative Angling. He is a Pennsylvania guide, an extremely well-rounded angler that fishes for everything from carp to muskie, and he's also a dedicated competitive angler, and he's a member of Team USA Fly Fishing. And we're here today mostly to give a little preview of the World Championships that are coming. Welcome.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Ross. Having me again, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, the championships are coming up in about a month here in Idaho. They're going to start on the 14th of September, so got a lot of tying to do in the next 30 days or so. But looking forward to it.
So you're not there like day by day, furiously tying the hot fly. You're all getting all stucked up before it happens.
Hopefully, usually, world championships you end up tying until 11 or midnight every night because you got some random fly that worked well in the session you're about to fish from your teammate. But fingers crossed, we're gonna have a good idea of what flies we need and be able to tie them up beforehand this time. Get a little bit more sleep. So that's one of the good things about a championships on home turf.
So, okay, home turf. Let's talk about that. Where exactly is it?
So they're going to be based in Idaho Falls. We're still a little bit shaky on the exact venues because of the drought we're having out there. So we still need some water projections, need to see what's going to be what. So we're not fishing anything that's too warm or too low. But the current plan is going to be Hebgen Lake, Sheridan Lake. So Sheridan's in Idaho. It's a private lake. Hebgen is in Montana, obviously part of the Madison River.
Mhm.
And then the Teton River, the Grays River, and the Henry's Fork below Mesa Falls. So in the canyon stretch there below the slide.
Wow. I've never heard of Sheridan Lake.
It's
But is the Grays River, is that a private stretch or is it
no,
public water?
no, that's all public. It's actually a really awesome venue because there's like a 40-mile dirt road that goes all the way along the entire river up. And there's like one or two small private stretches, but most of the river is public. There's a ton of recreation in the area, but super
Hmm.
accessible. So it's not going to be, sub championships. You have to bushwhack through a couple miles of brush to get to your beat. This one, hopefully, you'll be able to kind of jump off the road and get right there.
So it sounds like you've been there. Have you had practice sessions out there? I mean, you live in Pennsylvania. How is Idaho your home turf?
So it's a little bit off my home turf for me, but we did our national championships there last September. And then we've been out as a team twice for practice. Once in I guess it was early June, and then once I just got back yesterday from our most recent practice. So
Okay, so you spent some time out there.
little bit of time, about 3.5, 4 weeks total.
So the national championships last year, is that to determine who's on the world team?
Yeah, so that's the final stage of our cycle for Team USA. It's like a 2.5 year cycle to make the team. Has like three parts, so it's kind of ends in the national championships is the header, and then the top three anglers in cumulative points through the regionals, interregionals, nationals, are added to the team, the world's team automatically, and then the next two to finish out the five are kind of coaches and unanimous decision between the people on the team. So it's definitely a lot of work to make the team.
Well, I'm very curious about it. I haven't done competitive fishing. I mean, I barely know how to Euro nymph. Honestly, it's not my gig, but I'm very curious about it, and I'm fascinated by the logic and precision behind it, and obviously the success of it. And it's easy for me to acknowledge how much the sport of fly fishing in general has inherited from competitive fly fishing. I mean, if you fish with beadhead nymphs, that came from competition fishing, and so many other things. Like you look at a lot of the fly boxes in fly shops, a lot of this stuff, these little jig-headed, deadly nymphs that all came from that world. So there's a lot of people out there that say, well, competition fishing, that's not how I fish. Well, yeah, you're using their flies.
Yeah.
We've inherited a lot, and I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's definitely, especially over the last decade, it's become way more mainstream. The flies you see in fly shops. I remember when I started, like, you pretty much would never see a tungsten beaded nymph in a fly shop box. It would be you either to order it online or tie it yourself. And now just every fly shop has a load of them in different weights and sizes, and it's pretty cool that it's kind of just part of the common fly fishing journey now is Euro nymphing and using these flies.
It's not really a specialty thing anymore, is it? Especially in Pennsylvania, like the trout streams around here where we live, everybody is
Everyone's Euro
doing it.
nymphing. Yeah, no, it's not as much of a specialty tactic anymore as just, something that used to be, you dry fly fish, you indicator nymph, you streamer fish. And now it's you dry fly fish, you're a nymph, you indicator fish, you streamer fish. It's just kind of one of the main tactics, I think.
Be prepared for everything, and that must be how you guys are tackling it out in Idaho. I mean, you're fishing lakes, big rivers, small rivers.
Yeah,
You got to be ready for anything.
a lot of variety in the venues for sure. It'll be little bit of everything. Depending on the water levels, obviously, sometimes one thing can be a little bit more useful than the other, but you'll see a lot of Euro nymphing in the clips of the championships here.
So you've got lakes and streams, and for instance, the Grays River, it will be broken up into a bunch of beats.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, how it works is, I think we have 24 teams this year. Um, don't quote me on that, but it's somewhere around there. So every river is going to be broken into 24 smaller sections. They're around 250 meters or so. And then the way it works is there's 5 people on each country's team. So there's five. It's broken into 5 venues. So we have, the 2 lakes, the 3 rivers, and so the 5 anglers on each team are going to be broken into groups. So we have Group A, B, C, D, E. And then you take all the anglers in Group A, and they're fishing directly against each other. So they're going to the same river every day, and fishing, their respective beats, comparing their numbers. And same with anglers in Group B, Group C. And then every day they move to the next one. So if, Group A fished uh, venue one on the first day, second day they go fish venue two, and Group E that fished venue five goes around to venue one. So,
Okay, that makes sense.
yep, they all
So
finish.
you, as one of the anglers, you're going to every single venue, but you might not fish the same beat as somebody else because the beats are like a random draw.
Yeah, yeah. The beats are random draw. You'll never fish the same beat as one of your teammates. You may one of your teammates may be on the lower end, and you may be 10 miles upstream on the highest beat. So there could be some big differences there, but for the most part, the team aspect of it is you're following one of your teammates the entire time. So for example, I'm following Devin. Every day I fish the venue that he's fished the day before me. So he gives me all the information of what he found that worked, how he caught fish, and then I take that and try to replicate it or add it to my plan, to try and figure out the venues as a team.
Today's episode is supported by Just Add H2O, the go-to name in synthetic fly tying materials. From fibers such as Steve Farrar Blend and Flash and Slinky to a wide array of tying brushes, Just Add H2O offers exceptional durability, unmatched color selection, and performance only synthetics can offer. These materials hold up and fish well in any water, from the flats to the Bolivian jungle and every trout stream in between. Look for Just Add H2O at your local fly shop or at renzetti.com. It's kind of a falsehood that I just propagated moments ago that this is a Euro nymphing thing. I'm sure you probably will do that at some point, but you can catch fish on dry flies. You can streamer fish. You can do anything you want that's within the rules, right?
Yeah, yeah, anything you want within the rules. So usually there's a lot of dry fly fishing, and a lot of Euro nymphing. Uh, Depends on the country, depends on the venues, but I'd say probably 60% of my sessions at World Championships overall caught fish on dries at some point. So definitely plays a role. Streamers, especially if the water's high, muddy, or you're trying to cover like big flat sections, they can play a role. The only thing you're really not going to see us doing is indicator nymphing, because we can't use indicators or split shot. You'll see us doing dry dropper or kind of fishing nymphs under a floating line far away. But that's really the only big tactic that regular anglers are going to use that you're not going to see in competition. Uh, and
When
then
you'd switch to streamers the same time, I would switch to streamers. Like
pretty
when the water's
much,
high and dirty, that's when I would fish streamers also.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you gotta meet the fish on their terms and show them the food that they wanna eat. So it's
That's the game everyone plays.
yeah, same thing. I like to say in competitions, you're competing against everyone, but your only actual competition is the fish, because that's really all that matters in your session. You're not trying to race someone to catch the same fish in your beat, right? You're just trying to convince the fish to eat, just like you do when you go out and fish for fun, for normal. So
Yeah, even if you're not in an official competition, like fly fishing's a game. Like you're competing with yourself or setting up obstacles for yourself, setting up challenges for yourself. It's very game like. I mean, there's rules in the competition, but I have rules for myself. We all have rules for ourselves. Otherwise, why
yeah,
are we fly fishing? Like we're making it difficult on purpose. We're not doing it the easy way. We're like setting up the parameters that we want to play in, and So everybody's doing this to a degree.
Yeah,
You just have different parameters, maybe.
yeah, and I think the the one thing that kind of sets competitions apart is that we have a pretty strict time limit, right, on how long we can fish. But everyone, when they go out, has a time limit, right? You either, you have when you start until it gets dark, or maybe you have when you get off work until you have to pick your kids up from soccer. So we're all against some sort of clock, trying to catch as many fish as we can. So
That's true. I've never thought of it that way. So I want to dig into your background in the competitive angling circuit. Like, how did you end up on Team USA, the World Championship team? How, where do you get started doing competitive fly fishing?
so I got started when I was really young. I think I was 12 when I found out about competitive fishing. And then I was 13 when I first got actively involved with it. So there's a great program, the U.S. Youth Fly Fishing Team. They're actually based in State College, Pennsylvania, so central PA, not far from where I grew up in Pittsburgh and where I currently live. And they host clinics every year to across the country. I think they do one out west, one down south, and one in Pennsylvania, to kind of get kids interested in the sport and help them learn a little bit. So get a lot of kids that go to the clinics that aren't necessarily even interested in competing, but they get to learn from some really good coaches and stuff like that. So I think last year we had almost 30 kids for 2 days, at the Pennsylvania clinic at least, and it was basically like two kids to one instructor. So we had a lot of people there, helping out. So it's a great program, and that's how I got started. I did a clinic in Pennsylvania on Fishing Creek, and met some great instructors that really helped me out along the way. And I think I did the clinic when I was 13, and 2 weeks later, I did my first competition because all
Well,
the people there, all the instructors were like, if you want to try it, just go try it. You gotta get in one. And I think I came in seventh out of 10. It was not a good finish for me, but
but
I
48 hours after learning,
for
that's not bad.
but it was a great time. I liked it, and I kept coming back for more, and I made the U.S. youth team in 2016. So like about 2 years after I started, and then I went to my first youth world championships in 2017, and I did that 2017, 18, 19 in Slovenia, Poland, and the Czech Republic, for youth worlds, and then aged off when I kind of got to college and took a little bit of a forced break from competing because of COVID. There wasn't really much going on, so I didn't have a chance to make the adult team until I graduated in like 2022. I think the next cycle started, so there was a big break there where I was still on the youth team, so I couldn't try out, and then COVID happened, so I couldn't try out. So um, started again in 22, and I made the team in, I guess, February of 24, and went to the World Championships in France, and then again last year to the Czech Republic, actually, and that was my second World Championships in the Czech Republic.
So is there world championships every year?
There is, yeah,
Okay, it's not like
every s-
Olympics every 4 years or something like that. It's every single year.
yeah,
It's somewhere.
yeah, every single year.
Man, you've got to see some pretty cool places
Yeah,
in
that's
this fly fishing journey.
That's one of the best things about it, honestly, is all the places you get to see. There's places I've gone for world championships that you would never think to go for just a vacation, or just traveling, but really cool places with really cool fishing for the most part. Sometimes it sucks, but
Mhm.
usually it's pretty fun, and yeah, it's been a blast. It's been a
Fly
good.
fishing is the best excuse to go to travel somewhere.
It
Honestly,
really
it
is.
really it
It
is.
really is. There every place has some sort of cool fly fishing, Even if it seems like it doesn't, it has something cool somewhere within an hour of where you are.
The
So,
people, the geography. I mean, where trout live in America is always in some pretty cool places, but around the world, they're in some pretty cool places too.
yeah. Yeah, usually very very beautiful places, pretty interesting places as well.
So last year's World Championships, how did Team USA do?
We
What
we did
happened?
we did awesome. It was a great championships for us. It was our second podium finish in a row. So we got bronze in France, and then we got bronze in the Czech Republic as well. And we worked really well as a team, and just it was really variable fishing in the Czech Republic. There was a ton of different tactics we were catching fish on in each different venue. A huge variety between some of the venues, and some some very uneven beats. So some of the beats were very bad, and there was just nothing you could do with them. Really, you were shooting for a couple points off the lowest instead of shooting to win because there just wasn't enough fish in them. And then some of the beats were great. So we had a lot of ups and downs. A lot of every one of us for the most part had one session that went really bad, and we all came back from it and continued to do well through the rest of the competition. So, it was a good one. It was a good
How important is the luck of drawing the good beat? I mean, is this luck or skill?
time.
Which one is it? You've got bronze two times in a row now, which seems very consistent, which would indicate it's not luck. But man, if you get a crappy beat, you're in a world of hurt. So, like, what's the
there's
balance?
there's definitely a good bit of luck. It's you got to be good and lucky. Especially for an individual medal. If you're trying to get on the podium individually, you have to have at least a middle of the line beat every session. If you get a really bad beat that there's just nothing that can be done with, it doesn't matter how good of an angler you are. You're not going to get on the podium. Um, aside from some very hectic competitions like the Czech Republic, where basically everyone got one bad beat, and it made for a pretty high points world. But usually you got to be fairly lucky. So as an individual, you fish 5 sessions, right? So there's a good chance in one of those 5 sessions that you're going to get a beat that's not great. Um, there's a good chance that someone out of the 160 people is going to get 5 beats that are pretty good. So from the individual perspective, there's definitely luck that plays a big role. From a team perspective, as a team, you fish 25 beats. Your points are all added up. So you have 5 anglers, they fish 5 beats, and through that larger sample size, it usually tends to even out a little. Obviously, there's still some luck involved, but for the most part, every team is going to have a couple bad beats between their anglers. They're going to have a couple really good beats between their anglers, and then they're going to have average middle of the road beats for the rest of the time.
Do you know you're getting a bad beat before you get on it? I mean, like, because so and so fished it the day before and he didn't catch any fish, so you're like, oh hell no, I'm in trouble. So you kind of see it coming, right?
Yeah, you definitely. So you don't know what beat you're fishing until the morning of your
Okay.
session. So you get on the bus and they start calling names. And so sometimes you know that like the highest beats are the worst beats, right? And you're on the bus, they're calling names at the bottom. You don't hear your name, and the closer you get to the top, the more nervous you get, right? Because you know you're gonna get a bad beat if you're up there. So it definitely can be nerve wracking when they're calling names. But in the end, you don't really know because whoever fished it before you may have just messed up really bad and just not found fish or not done it in the right way. And it could be a great beat that just no one's capitalized on, that you have a certain skill set that matches and you can do well on.
How do they break up the beats on a lake? Like, I totally understand how you get a bad beat on a river. Like, it's a hot day, all the fish are in the riffles, and you get like some slow beat. But I don't even know how you divide up a lake.
So a lake, so we're doing boat sessions, so it's from boats, and that's a little different because there are no beats. So more like a bass
Okay.
tournament. It's free range. You can have your boat go wherever you think the fish are going to be. You have to stay, I think it's 100 meters, 50 meters from another boat. Usually everyone's well outside that range because you don't want to be fishing right behind or next to someone. But it's more fair on a lake because the beat draw doesn't really come into play.
Okay.
Um,
That makes a lot of
yeah.
sense. But the weird thing, my understanding of the weird thing about boats is you've got like you could be in a boat and the other guy in the boat's from Germany, so it's like you're competitors in the same boat.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, it does get a little weird sometimes, especially if it's like you and with another team that's doing really well, right? But the lakes have a lot more gamesmanship than the rivers, because you can see everyone else fishing, you can see your boat partner fishing. So it's kind of if you're doing poorly and your boat partner's doing well, you can just look over and see what they're doing and try and match that or copy it.
What do you mean gamesmanship? Are you like secretly tying on
So,
flies? Like
there's
are you doing sneaky stuff?
there's all sorts of stuff. So like people like when you get to the high level of competing, like what every line looks like, right? So I know what every lake line pretty much out there is
You could
going to
just
look
tell
like.
on the color.
You can tell on the color. So guys dye their lines different colors, so they try and mix it up. So then you have to look at the angle it comes off the rod tip because faster sinking lines come at a sharper angle. So you're looking at stuff like that. Guys will do fake strips. So if they're doing like, you know, one strip, one strip, they'll add like a second in there that's like fake. So they don't actually grab the line, but they just pull it.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it's stuff like
That
that, or like you're in a lake session, you're drifting, so you have a drogue, which is basically a windsock, and you're going with the wind, casting with the wind, so you're drifting across the lake in some sort of way, and say I see a boat across the lake that's catching a ton of fish and I can see which way they're drifting. I can have our boat go in and get the legal distance in front of them and basically cut off their drift and take whatever's left. Um,
who's navigating the boat?
the controller, for the most part, the judge is the one navigating the boat.
So you
You
can tell him I
you
want to go over
yeah.
there. But what if the German guy says I want to go that way and you want to go that way?
So it's split. So you have control for half the session. So it's usually a 3 hour session. You flip a coin at the beginning, and winner chooses which half of the session they want to control the boat. And so for the most part, you'll have a general consensus with your boat partner about where you want to go because you both want to win. The goal of a lake session, a lock style lake session, is for you and whoever you're in the boat with to come in first and second because that's the best you can do. If you're fighting each other the entire time, you're not going to do that. You're going to come in,
So there's teamwork
last.
involved in it too, kind of.
There's some tense teamwork involved in it. And depending on, who you're in the boat with, what country, sometimes it's more teamwork and sometimes it's more, okay, we're gonna at least kind of agree on this so that we do decently well. Sometimes there's no teamwork and usually that ends up with both people doing poorly. So
That makes sense. I mean, let's work together and let's both do as well as possible. The opposite of that would be like the guys drumming on the bottom of the boat or rocking it so you can't make a presentation or whatever, and then
yeah.
everybody does lousy.
Yeah. Or, I've never had it happen to me, but like um people will be in the boat with someone, and as soon as that other person, like if they're doing well, they're catching a ton of fish. As soon as that other person gets control of the boat, they'll take them over to somewhere that has like no fish, and just basically waste the second half of their session. Yeah,
But that doesn't help
begrudgingly,
them.
exactly, and that's why there usually has to be some teamwork. But sometimes it'll be their country has so many points they just need to keep you from winning the session. So there's stuff like that. It's very
I guess it
interesting.
depends on who you're in the boat with. I think
It
sometimes
does.
I'm sure it's just fun to meet somebody from another country and see what they're doing, and you're both fly fishers.
Yeah. Yeah. You for the most part, it's pretty fun, pretty normal. It's like you just hopped in the boat with a stranger, or sometimes it's someone you know well and you're friends with. Um, but usually by the end, you have some sort of trauma bond from how bad it was, or you know you both did super well and you're happy about it. So it's a lot of friendships are made through the lake sessions.
Summer is officially here, and that means outdoor gatherings on weekends, long evenings on the river, and fishing trips with buddies. It's a great time of year to enjoy a cigar with friends. We're proud to have Cigars International as a sponsor and supporter of Loop to Loop. And for me, there's no better time to smoke a cigar than when I'm waiting for the evening hatch or drifting down a river. Cigars International makes ordering cigars easy with the largest selection of premium handmade cigars and free shipping on every order. They make cigars approachable and fun with expert guides, staff reviews, and helpful advice. They make sure that every cigar I smoke is a great one. And they also have accessories and humidors to elevate your smoking experience. You can support this podcast and get 20% off your order by using the code FLYFISH at checkout, or just visit cigarsinternational.com/flyfish and the discount will automatically apply. I want to go through the team roster. We've got two Team USA fly fishing. We've met you, but there's 5 anglers and a coach. So I'd like you to sort of introduce us to these people, and so we get to know who's representing Team USA on our home territory in September. So let's start off with the captain, this guy, Pat Weiss,
Yeah,
who I hear a lot about. He's from Pennsylvania. He's got a lot of experience in competitive angling. Is that right?
yeah. Pat is, gosh, this has to be his 18th year competing at World Championships. So he did the Adult World Championships for I think 14 years, and the last 3 years, 14, 15, 3 years, he's done the Masters Championships, which is 50 and over. And so Pat has a couple team medals from the regular Adult World Championships, and then the past 2 years, he's actually placed third in the Masters Championships. So he is very experienced, very great angler. Definitely the one of the funnest people to be around because he really brings the central PA to Europe. Um, it's it's a good time, and yeah, but we're excited to have him as the coach for this year. So
I hear a lot about him, but not on social media. I don't see this guy on YouTube. He
no,
doesn't do books, magazine articles. I've been in this business 30 years. I've never even met him, but I just hear about him just like appearing stealthily out of the bushes wearing camouflaged clothes and catching 50 fish and then vanishing back into the foliage.
that is a very apt description of Pat. Yeah, he wants nothing to do with anything but just catching fish and competing.
He's
So
like a ghost.
he's a
More
ghost. He's a
like the
legend.
Sasquatch of Pennsylvania woods.
You would love that comparison. Yeah, no, he is. He's a ghost in the fishing machine for sure.
And how did he end up to be captain? Because on the website it says Glade Gunther is captain. So can you explain how that worked?
Yeah, so Glade is actually running this year's World Championships. He's in charge of everything, and you know, from the standpoint of he just doesn't have time to be our captain with all the stuff that's going on with running it, and the fact that it's not allowed to be the I guess the leader of the World Championships and also a team captain, part of a team. So we brought Pat on
Okay.
as our captain for this year.
It'd be like Johnny Infantino being a player in the World Cup.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a bad analogy. Why do you need a captain?
So
Like, what
the
does the captain do? He's not fishing.
he's not fishing, and I don't believe some teams do have their captain be their alternate as well, so their captain can like jump in and fish if someone needs it. We have a separate alternate. So Pat is just our captain. The role of the captain is changes with every world championships depending on what exactly the venues are like. But the captain's the only person that can talk to an angler while they're fishing. So if my parents were there or a friend was there, they can't talk to me while I'm competing. I would get docked some points for communicating. So but with Pat, with our team captain, he can tell me that, okay, yesterday the guy here did really good up there or something. Or it looks like there's fish down below you rising, and kind of direct you, help you out in the session with information you may not have going into it. Good example is in France. Our captain was Glade, and we were fishing some high mountain lakes. And it was my first session at a adult world championships, and basically it was sight fishing with dry flies to very spooky high mountain lake trout. And so we actually had Glade up on the cliff looking at the lake, watching fish swim around and directing me where to cast because I couldn't see him with the glare,
Hmm.
but he could see him up there. So it was, very much a teamwork situation of, okay, the fish is over there, cast, get ready, he's gonna eat, set
Oh
the
yeah.
hook. So
It's more like a coach than a captain. Like I think of
yeah,
captain like on a hockey team, the captain, he's out there, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
This is like a coach and
yeah.
he's instructing you, guiding you, coaching you while it's happening.
Yeah, yeah, definitely more of a coach, and also just trying to make sure you're in check mentally, during the session, you know, let you know how you're doing, let you know you're doing good, stuff like that. So more so than just fishing related stuff, just making sure you're doing well is, in your own head because that's a big deal as well.
There's been a lot of great captains in the past. George was a captain for years, right?
I
George Daniel.
believe so.
Pretty sure he was a captain for quite a few years. He competed with Pat.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they're basically the same cohort, kind of been doing it, they were doing it in the same time period.
Yeah, yeah, I think they were on the team, I wanna say 4 years together, and I believe George was the captain, and then I believe it was Russ Miller, and then Glade took over after that.
Okay.
Um, Gotta check me on my timeline there, but, um, yeah, so we've
All
had
great anglers.
all great anglers, and, all had a big hand in all the success of their team, so
A lot of younger people now. It seems like youth is good.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Jack Arnott.
Yeah, so
Where's he from? Tell us about him.
Jack's from Colorado. He grew up in Eagle, which is like right outside of Vail. So the Eagle River in
Hmm?
Colorado is like his backyard, and like Gore Creek. So he had some really great stuff to grow up fishing on. I was always jealous, but we have known each other since we were 14 or 15, probably. We both were part of the youth program, and we're some of the I think us and Cody and Norm, who was on the team a while ago, were the only ones that continued from the youth program to the adult program. So it's a lot of work and a lot of time to keep it going, through college and early adulthood. So we're definitely proud of that.
Is Jack, this is his first world championship or he's done previous ones like you?
No, he's done both. He's fished in the Czech Republic and France. Yeah, just like I did, and then he was um, on the team. He made it in 2018, I think,
Mhm.
before I could try out, and he, I believe, was their alternate in Spain and Slovakia. Maybe one more. I'm not sure, but so he's been to a number of adult world championships, both in a um, helping out capacity and in a fishing capacity.
Tons of experience on this team
Yeah,
already, and
yeah,
we're just getting started on this list. Cody Bergdorf, he's also from Colorado, right?
he
Am
is.
I right?
He also from
Okay.
Colorado, right near Jack. Another awesome angler, an awesome guy, and one of the only people to also come up from the youth team. He was on the youth team a good bit before me and Jack. I think he was on circa 2012 or 13, I want to say. He was doing youth world championships, and then continued through. And I think he's fished in a number of worlds for the adult team. I want to say he's fished in 5 already for the adult team. Uh, Slovakia, Spain, Czech Republic, France, and I think one more, but I'm not sure.
I want to ask, like, what's his forte? Like, what's his strong suit? But With this competitive angling, are you guys just so well rounded in everything? Nobody has a strong suit? Like, I know in my own fishing, I'm good at some stuff because I like it, and other stuff I'm not good at because I don't. But you guys don't really get that luxury, right? You have to be able to do everything.
Yeah, yeah. No, you definitely have to be really well-rounded. I think all of us are pretty well-rounded anglers. We all have certain strengths based on kind of where we live and the waters we fish a lot. So like the big western waters are not quite, you know, my biggest strength because we don't have anything similar in Pennsylvania, right? But fishing a super light fly on, super light tippet far away and in spring creeks, I'm really good at because that's what I do all the time. And, you know, there's not a ton of that out west. So like based on where you grow up, where you fish, you definitely some of us have, slight tendencies, slight strengths in certain things. And all the Western guys, especially, are really good at stillwater fishing because they have a ton of good lakes out that way. Pennsylvania, we're a lot more limited on our lake fishing. Basically, all stocked fish, all adult stocked fish, and we really only have good lake fishing from, when opening day of trout starts in April, first week of April, till kind of the first week of June, and then it gets too hot. So,
The
it,
lake fishing does suck here. I mean, we got
yeah,
a lot of lakes. There's a hell of a lot of lakes. They're just not trout lakes. They're too warm.
yeah, too warm, too unfeatured for trout. So you don't get the same experience. Definitely can still get a lot of lake fishing experience, but it's all kind of the same. Stock trout, warm
Mhm.
water fishery that every other lake is. So the western guys are definitely the lake specialists of the group for sure.
Yeah, Colorado has some really great lakes, although not so much this year.
Yeah,
In the
yeah,
reservoirs, anyways. But yeah, I mean, most of my high alpine lake fishing has been in Colorado.
yeah.
I love like lakes at 9, 10,000 feet. You know,
Who
that's my
doesn't?
kind of lake fishing. I don't really like big giant reservoirs and stuff like that.
Yeah, the high mountain lakes are really cool, and a much different strategy completely to fishing. The big reservoirs. We get both of those at world championships, so you have to be able to do, you know, go from one to the other or do both. But yeah, I think some of the best lake fishing in the world is in the Western U.S. It's,
Agree.
I'm jealous.
And also in British Columbia, have you ever fished some of those lakes there?
I've not been up there,
Oh,
but I
damn.
I know it is good.
Up around Kamloops and like Brian Chan's territory
Yeah.
up there around Kamloops. The whole south of British Columbia just it's a real prime zone for lakes. I'm not a lake guy, but I like fishing those lakes because the fish are damn big and
That is
they
the
have
thing with lakes
great
is
hatches.
if you want to catch a really big fish, it's going to be probably in a lake.
Speaking of lake fishing, who's this unknown person, Devin Olson? I've never heard of him.
Yeah, I don't know that guy too well. He's not been around very long. No, he's our grandpa. He's the oldest guy on the team now, which I think he's done probably the most world championships of anyone I know in this
Of any
country.
American, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, in this country or other countries, I don't know anyone that's done more than him. I'm sure there are, but not a lot. I think this is probably going on his 18th adult world championships, if I had to guess. Um, Maybe 17th, but he's done a lot, and he's been around a lot of situations and seen a lot of different like the competitive fishing. The more you see, the more you can have to kind of draw back on from all these random little situations and different conditions on different rivers across the world. The better you can do on when you're thrown into a situation that you have never seen before. And so that experience is invaluable for him and for us as a team because we can see something in practice and he'll be like, oh yeah, this happened in Tasmania in 2017 or whatever. And it just the same situation, even if it's in a different country, usually has the same solution. So
Experience helps.
experience
I
helps
mean,
a
and
ton.
in fly fishing, especially. Yeah.
Yeah,
Didn't he just publish a book on stillwater fishing, right?
he
Within the
did.
last couple of years.
He published what is, I'm sure, the best book or resource generally on stillwater fly fishing anywhere out there in the world. When I started competing, there was basically nothing available on how to really fish a lake and break down a lake, anything from a big reservoir to a small mountain lake, and cover the water effectively with different sinking rates of lines and flies and all that. And his book really took everything out there and put it into one resource. And if I had had that in 2014 when I started, I would be probably double the lake fisherman I am at the moment.
So in the book, would it be fair to say he gives away some of the techniques that people might be using?
Oh yeah, he goes over everything. There's pretty much everything is in that book.
Didn't hold anything back
No,
for
not really.
secret strategy for Team USA?
Nah, no. I'm pretty sure basically everything you would need to do well on a lake anywhere in the world is in that book. There's always some tiny little nuances that you just don't have enough pages to write about,
Hmm.
right? But yeah, he covered all the important stuff.
Speaking of home turf, I mean, this guy's probably fished Hebgen Lake for a whole year if you add up the days.
Yeah, he actually lived in Idaho Falls for a while when he was doing
Oh,
his
did he?
master's degree. So I think he was there 18 months or something. So he knows a lot of the venues and all the this practice water and stuff out there. He's fished it all before. And then in where he's at, I think he's like,
He's a Utah guy, right?
no, he's in Wyoming now. He's in
Oh, is
Lander.
he?
Yeah. Um,
Oh, really?
yeah. Yeah. So he
That's pretty sweet. I love Lander.
That's why I moved there. He loves the fishing out there. I love the fishing out there. It's great fishing. But
Oh, he must get up and fish the lakes in the Wind River Range a lot.
yeah, I think he says his favorite place in the world is the Winds, and he does like 60-mile backpacking trips across the mountains all the time. He's the most fit person I know.
I have to talk to him about that because I thought the same thing about the winds, but then this summer I went to the Beartooth, did a 5-day backpacking trip in the Beartooth Mountain. There's some nice lakes up there.
I believe he's done the Beartooths as well. He's a big backpacker. He'll just put on a backpack and walk in a straight line across whatever terrain is there. So
That's me
it's
too. I love it because dumb fish.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Yes, that's
And
for me.
fingers crossed the lake you get to has fish though. That's what I hear is the hard part. Getting to some and there's just nothing around.
Yeah, I guess that does happen once in a while, but there's so many lakes. There's another one 2 miles, and
Yeah,
you can tell the ones that are going to be bad. They don't have inflow, outflow. There's no spawning possibilities and stuff like that. But speaking of lakes with structure, like those alpine lakes they were just ridiculous. The inflows and the gravel bars right where the water comes in, and then these big tailouts at the end of the lake where there's big boulders and stuff. It was just awesome. You could see every fish.
yeah,
You see what's going on. It's amazing.
yeah. The sight fishing of those lakes is really really cool.
That's the lake fishing I like.
Yeah.
Michael Bradley, I had the pleasure of meeting him in Lancaster, and he was showing some techniques to me. He's from North Carolina.
Yeah, yeah, he's from Cherokee, North Carolina, which is like right in the mountain area near the national park. And he started competing, I think, around when I did, sometime around 2014, 13, 15. So he's been in it a good long while now, and he is absolutely killing it. I think he came in fourth in France, and he came in third podium finish in the Czech Republic. So very very consistently doing well. I know he's consistently did well before that as well. So yeah, he's a really really awesome guy and really awesome angler.
I spent some time chatting with him in Lancaster, and then he seems like a guy I'd like to fish with. He seems cool as hell. And the rivers down there sound pretty awesome too. Have you fished down there with him in his home territory?
I have. I fished down there a lot, because because there's a lot of competitions, in that area. So I fished down there once or twice a year since 2015 or 16 probably.
And is it
It's
good?
it's awesome. It's really fun fishing. It's very unique. It's a good mix of wild rainbows and stocked fish, a couple wild brown trout, but you'll get a ton of fish. A lot of those really small, 4 to 8 inch rainbows that make it super hard to set the hook on them. And that's always was an issue going from Pennsylvania where we have brown trout that are average like 10 inches that eat pretty slow and hold on a long time. Going down to North Carolina where they have their little rainbows that hit and are gone before you even see your sighter move. Um,
Huh.
so it's different fishing and very all the rivers are pretty beautiful, pretty clear water for the eastern U.S. Because they come off the sides of the mountains that are pretty sandy.
And this is in a national forest?
So the Smoky Mountain National Park is
Okay.
makes up a lot of that area. And then, there's a lot of rivers around that as well. So like he's in Cherokee and they have the Ravens Fork that goes through there. So that's not in the park, but I think it backs up right to the park. Um, and then the other big one that we fish a lot is the Nantahala River, which is a dam controlled tailwater and has an upper section that's not dam controlled and a lower section that is, and gets giant when they release water, but has the carrying capacity of a big river, but when they're not running water, it has that number of fish in a very small condensed area, so you can catch a lot of fish there.
So that's the captain and the 5 anglers. You, Jack, Cody, Devin, Michael, and you have an alternate, Austin Shoemaker.
Yeah, so Austin was our alternate last year in the Czech Republic, and he's the alternate again this year. So that's a very important job for the team because one, they're there in case someone falls off a cliff and breaks their leg and can't fish or gets sick. So that we as a team can still have someone fishing and gaining those points for us. And then also to help with, tying flies, gathering intel so he can go watch other venues. So if he wants to go watch, one of the lakes and see where all the
Ooh,
boats
like a
are,
spy.
like a spy. Yeah.
Oh, I let's
So
not call it alternate. Let's just call him spy. That's cooler.
yeah, so he can go watch all that and then can't talk to any of the anglers, during the competition, but afterwards, he can come back and say what he saw, where people were catching fish, what they were doing maybe. Um, and so that's super important job for intel gathering. You know. So it's and obviously during practice, help another person to help us figure out, what the fish are doing and what they're eating.
He's like
Um,
the FBI. Does he have binoculars?
He does.
Oh,
He does. Yeah, we
yes.
definitely get him binoculars. It's yeah, it's pure spy work.
That's pretty cool. Has it ever happened that somebody got sick or broke a leg or whatever?
Not
Eat the bad lettuce and get the diarrhea or anything like that?
not that I know of. I can't say I've ever heard of it happening to our team. But there's been some times that we're close for sure. But
Hmm.
if you get sick or hurt, you do everything in the practice time to make sure you get better for the actual competition. Um,
Well, if anybody goes out and drinks too hard one night, I mean, Boston might be in the next day.
yeah, yeah, and there's some teams like you asked about specialties earlier as well. So like, you know, I think the French did this last year, or maybe they did it in France, but they had an angler that was very well known and very good at fishing uh, lakes, and I think maybe that like specific type of lake. And then they had another angler that was very good at the specific type of river, and so they subbed him out.
Like a pinch hitter.
Yeah, yeah. So they can sub them out. So whoever's specialty matches the water, they put them in, and they fish, and then
Wow. Did that work for them?
Um, I don't believe it did.
Uh,
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The tough part about it is that now instead of having, one person who first session they have the jitters and they're a little bit nervous, now you have that happening twice you know, in your world. So you have two people that some session is going to be their first session. They're not going to be uh, as in head in the game as someone that's fished the entire five. And I think that definitely comes up as a problem. You're just not as in the zone.
do you get nervous?
Oh yeah,
Do you
100%.
really?
Yeah, yeah. I get nervous for sure. The only the only person I know that doesn't get nervous is Michael Bradley. He's I've never seen him nervous of anything in his life. But and that really is his superpower. Anyone that can do it and not get nervous, usually does pretty well. But most people get nervous, especially during the first session. I mean, first session you're trying to tie on a fly and your hands are shaking like this because you have so much adrenaline pumping through you. And then by 5 or 10 minutes in, it wears off, and then it's just fishing again. But yeah, it's
I guess
there's
with anybody watching you, I get nervous with tarpon guides. Like I make some lousy casts and stuff, and it just like the pressure mount. He's watching. They're mean a lot of times.
yeah. Luckily, I
So
don't
I
have
get it. I've been nervous before too, especially with people watching and counting on you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely something that you got to account for, and I try and practice in my free time in similar situations, give myself a time limit, a hard time limit to fish somewhere. Try and catch as many fish just so you're not pulling up to that situation unknown to what it feels like. And obviously trying to compete as much as possible as well domestically.
So Team USA's got bronze in the last 2 years. It's a pretty good track record. A lot of experience. I'm thinking they should win. Like, who's the favorite? Like, who's the heavyweight titan? Like, who won last year?
Fingers crossed, but the French have won, I believe, the last 3 years in a row, and then the same one French guy has won the last 3 years in a row individually as well.
Really?
Exceptional
He's
angler.
won. What's
Yeah.
his name?
Pierre Kuntz. So
Pierre.
yeah, yeah. So he's exceptional. I had to fish against him in my group last year, and he's just he's a beast. But yeah, so they're definitely the stiffest competition. Their team is really good. Um, they know each other very well. France is a little smaller than the U.S., so they can fish together a lot more. Um, and they've all been fishing world championships for a very long time. So they're a very seasoned team. But I like to think that we're the heavy hitter for this one because it is home field advantage. We do, even though the water is about as far from me as France. I have fished it a couple more times, so hopefully it'll help out, and we'll pull up to the beats with some knowledge of where the fish are in them and how to fish them. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. So the French are the stiffest competition. The Spanish as well are pretty notable competitive team. They just won the Masters Championship couple days ago, week ago.
So that's different people, right? But
Different
it
people,
shows the
but
legacy.
yeah, and I mean, they did. I think they got second last year, and they did well the year before. I think they got second the year before.
And they
So
just won World Cup soccer.
yeah, yeah, they're
So come on, like they can't win it all.
we'll do our best to make sure they don't. But
Yeah, just if there's any guys from Spain listening, I just want to say that was the most boring soccer game. That final. All the other ones were great. That one when Spain won, that was a terrible game because it's boring. Did you watch that?
I didn't watch that one.
Okay.
I didn't watch that one.
Well, I just thought I'd get a jab in at
I
Spain.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Good on them for winning, but I like Argentina because it's a fly fishing country.
Well, Spain has some pretty dang good fly fishing as well. I don't know. I'd say it's almost rivaling some of the stuff in Argentina.
Would
But
you really?
oh yeah, it's not as well known, but it's has some awesome fishing, especially for some very big fish too. Um, yeah,
Rivaling Argentina?
yeah, I know.
That's
It's
pretty
tough.
bold.
The scenery may not be quite as rugged and interesting, but there's definitely some really really good fishing in Spain, all across the country as well. So
So Spain and France are big heavy hitters. What about in the UK, like Team England, or is there Scotland? Is there Ireland? I mean, that this is where fly fishing came from.
yeah, yeah, I don't know exactly which countries are sending teams. I haven't looked at the roster in a while, but I believe England is coming over. Uh, I know most of their team this year is on the newer side. A couple of my friends that I've competed against in the past are not doing it again, partly because the U.S. is a pretty expensive worlds to come to, especially over in the Idaho Falls, Jackson Hole area. So they're I don't know all the anglers coming with them, but fishing your first worlds ever is definitely a nerve wracking event. So
Yeah.
it's
I think this is a good chance to say that these things are self-funded. I mean, you guys are, people traveling to go to these world championships. You're not getting paid to do it. You're paying.
Yeah, no, I'm racking up some generational debt here.
Yeah.
No, it's expensive, for sure. You got to do it because you really like competing, not because you want any sort of prize out of it, because there is none. The medals are not real gold, so yeah, it's costly, and most of us have been doing it for pretty good while. For me, between youth and adult, this will be my sixth world championships. Same for Jack. I think even maybe a couple more with being an alternate. So it's spending a lot of money every year to come to these things, not only to go to world championships, but also just to make Team USA generally. Requires a lot of travel across the country and a
Mhm.
lot of time off work. So it's definitely you got to really want it to stay in it.
Just like any passion, it's a money suck.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
fly
know?
fishing is a money suck when you're not competing.
Yeah.
So, you can imagine what it is when you have all the travel and consumables and stuff added to it.
Yeah. So people they're really into it, and there's a high level of dedication. So that's one of the things that I find fascinating. So how you're a guide. Let's talk about your guide business. That's how you fund this, is you have a guide business.
Yeah, yeah, so
Oh,
I'm a
you're taking
guide.
time off your guide business too to do this too.
Yeah, yeah, so yeah, if you're doing world championships and trying to make Team USA, it's about 6 weeks of straight fishing days a year that you need. Um, so it's a lot of time off work. You really kind of have to either be self-employed or be pretty high up at your company or have a lot of leeway to make it work. So that's for the most part, all of us on the team are self-employed. Um, so that we can do that. That's a big thing.
Pretty
Probably
hard to
even
have a 9 to 5.
can't really have a 9 to 5 and do it. You can, but it's you got to have the time off or have a company that really is nice to you for
Yeah.
sure. So probably even more so than the money, that is an aspect that keeps people from making the team or going to world championships. Um, but
Yeah, another thing is if you got a family, I
yeah,
mean, it's pretty tough to give up that amount of time if you got two little kids or whatever. I'm sure your spouse might not be too thrilled with this
yeah.
amount of dedication.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's practically a second job, if you want to be really competitive with it and do well. But yeah, so I have my guide business. I'm in central Pennsylvania. I'm based in Bellefonte, so I fish all the um, famous limestoners: Spring Creek, Little J, Penns Creek, Fishing Creek, um, and I've been doing that. It was a couple weeks ago, my 1 year anniversary being a full time fishing guide, and I've definitely loved it every minute. But yeah, so I specialize in kind of teaching the tactics that we use in competitions. So the Euro nymphing, the advanced dry fly stuff, streamer stuff, and taking that from competition and teaching people in a way that they can apply it to their normal fishing, outside of competition stuff. How they can use that, both the tactics and kind of the mindset and the way we cover water to get the most out of their time on the water. Because like I said, we're all all against some sort of clock. We all only have a limited time on the water. I get a lot of people that only have 10 days a year to fish, and they want to make the most out of those 10 days. So it's maybe a different type of fishing outside of competition, but it's a similar goal. But so I do that, and I do bass and muskie guiding as well because I love fishing for all fish, not just trout, even though they do take up the majority of my time. And then I do some hosted travel as well. So I spend my winters in New Zealand and do some guiding over there. And this year we have a hosted trip between me and one of the competitors in New Zealand. His name's Ollie Bassett, and he's an awesome
Yeah, I've heard of
competitor.
that guy.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. He's a great dude, great fisherman. He usually goes to world championships. He's not coming to this one because it's on the expensive side, but so we're doing kind of an education-based hosted trip where it's, learning from us as well as fishing for some of the great big fish in New Zealand. So,
Where in the South Island, North Island?
North
What
Island, North Island. So it'll be a couple stops along the North Island.
in the Taupo area or
So part of it'll be Taupo, part of it'll be Rotorua area.
okay, yeah.
So a little variety in the fishing. Wanted to, see some multiple places instead of just sticking to one place. It's 10 days, so it's a lot of fishing. You need a little variety in there. But yeah, looking forward to that, and then doing just some standard guiding there as well.
You're where you guide in Pennsylvania is like my favorite waters to fish in Pennsylvania. And for me, the highlight this year, tell me if I'm crazy, was the green drake hatch this year better than in previous years?
It was.
Like, I don't want to name specific locations, but man, it was amazing.
I got into the biggest drake hatch that I've seen personally.
Me
But
too.
it was spotty. It was you'd go 200 yards downstream, 300 yards downstream, and there just wouldn't be as many. And then you get into a pocket. And my friend thinks that it's because we had a lot of anchor ice on some of those rivers this year that kind of took out some of the bugs. So some places you'd be, it was exceptional, and some places you'd be, and it was a little bit less so. But we had great drakes. We had awesome sulfurs this year. Some of the best sulfur hatches that I've ever seen, and some of the best caddis hatches that I've ever seen too. Just some super thick hatches. They kind of came all at once. They weren't spread out. They didn't last a super long time like they normally do. They really popped off within like a week period, really heavy, and then they trickled after that for a while. But it was some absolutely epic dry fly fishing when you could hit it right.
Yeah, and maybe that's well, it was an interesting year because the winter was so brutal with so much ice and snow. It was very cold, and then the spring had low water, which seems crazy to think about it, but it's not like the Rockies where a lot of snow means a lot of water. It's just like the snow's gone and that's it. It was, in April and May, there wasn't much water around, but the dry fly fishing was really great.
Yeah. Yeah, we had pretty variable water this year. Luckily, fishable basically the entirety of the year. We've only had one or two non-fishable days this year, which is pretty crazy. And even to this point, this is one of the best summers that I can remember as far as water levels and temperatures go. I mean, we're still having some solid 40 to 80 fish days on some of the local rivers that are just doing great with the current conditions.
Yeah, it
So
was a good year for us. It's pretty sad to see everything burning and no water in Colorado and stuff. I hope you guys get some water for the championships
yeah, it's
out there.
definitely going to be low and hopefully not too warm. But we're prepared for some low water. Um, Fingers crossed we get some rain and a little bit of a cool down, but we should be good to go regardless with the venues we're leaning towards. But yeah, a lot of fires, a lot of really dry climates. We had a couple fires start while we were just out there a couple days ago. So
So with all this competitive angling that you've done, you're turning around and teaching people. You're kind of a coach and an educator yourself, not just helping people catch fish, but you've got your own social media where you teach people stuff. You just did a story for us and a video that is now on flyfisherman.com about the flip cast.
Yeah, yeah. Um, it was one of my favorite cast. I used it a lot in the last World Championships, and a lot in my general fishing. But basically, the flip cast or pitch cast, whatever you want to call it, is a substitute for the roll cast with some of the micro leader systems we're using now. So with these really light leaders, they just don't have the mass to make a roll cast like you would traditionally do with a fly line. So when you're backed up against trees, when you just don't have backcast room or any area to lay your leader on the water behind you, this is the cast that I used to kind of get around that. So it's basically loading your rod, setting up your cast right under the rod tip in front of yourself instead of trying to do it behind or beside yourself. So
Or a standard roll cast, you would use the weight of the fly line to roll things out. But what you're talking about is you don't have room and you don't have fly line sticking out the rod tip, basically, because you've got an 18-foot leader or something, right?
yeah, pretty much. Mostly we're using 18-foot leaders of 4 to 6x. So it's something that just does not have the mass to carry a fly to a target. For the most part, doesn't have enough mass to even lift the fly out of the water if you try and make a roll cast with it. So, we need some specialized casting techniques to deal with the same situations that you would, use a roll cast or some other type of cast to deal with in traditional fly fishing.
So we've got a 3 or 4 minute video where you explain the pitch cast and a story to go with it. The video's on the Fly Fisherman Magazine YouTube channel. It's also on flyfisherman.com. We're looking forward to more instructional stuff from you. Before, I've never even heard of the flip cast, but you were demonstrating it on the casting pond at Lancaster, and I was like, damn, there's something new all the time.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely the sport is always evolving and people got to come up with ways to do some of this really finesse light fishing in different scenarios. So it's definitely it's come a long way just in the last 5 years with
It's kind of
this.
like a flip cast that the conventional guys would use, like bass fishermen, right?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
where you got it from?
Pretty much the exact same concept.
Except it's a size 18 bead head. Like there's a lot, you're dealing with a lot less weight.
Yeah, yeah, a lot less weight, and little bit of a different motion and some different stuff. You can set it up in your hand, you can set it up from the water, kind of like a water loaded cast. So some slight nuances, but the general mechanics are the same as flipping a bass jig under a dock. Um, you know, and if you've done that before, I find it's pretty intuitive for most people, just because you have the feel of that fly all the way through the cast. Um, and it's a great method for those tight spaces, or for you can be really accurate with it because you can see your fly the entire time it's in front of you for the entire cast. So you know exactly where it's headed, you know how far it's going to be off your rod tip because of how much line you have out. So when you're trying to do really accurate casts around log jams or tight structure up under trees, it's a great cast for that because you just have a little bit more control and understanding what's happening.
Very cool. Well, we'll look forward to more of that from you. Uh, I like learning from you. I like learning from all you competitive angler guys. So keep up the good work and good luck
Well, thank you very
in
much.
Idaho. And we're recording this a few weeks in advance. But can you give the dates again?
Yeah, so the championship is from September 14th to the 19th, and you can see the scores if you just look up 2026 World Fly Fishing Championship. It's the first link that'll pop up. They'll post live scores every day after the sessions, and they'll also do some updates on Facebook and stuff like that. So, and then if you follow any of us competitors, we'll probably give you updates through the championships as well.
Is there a Team USA Instagram page or something
Yeah,
that'll have that?
there's Team USA Instagram. That's just Fly Fishing Team USA on Instagram, and we have Cody's fiance has been doing an awesome job running our social media. She does some really great updates and stuff through the championships. So I'm sure she'll do that again this year, and it'll be really, really cool. So yeah, follow us on Instagram. You'll be able to see all the stuff live, probably before the scores come out online, and probably get some videos of us competing and doing our thing. So
And we'll share that too on the Fly Fisherman magazine at Fly Fisherman magazine. But yeah, follow Team USA to keep the updates, and we should probably put everybody's handles up on the YouTube version. We'll put all the team members' social media up there so people can follow them and see what's going on with the team when it happens live.
yep, everyone but Pat Weiss.
The Pennsylvania Sasquatch.
I mean, he'll love that.
Thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it,
Yeah,
man.
sure thing. Thanks
Good
for
luck.
having me.